if you go to New Orleans, there's 3 things you have to do. You have to eat crawfish, eat some beignets, and go to the World War II Museum. And if you don't know how to eat crawfish, they kind of look like big crawdads. You break them in half and you suck the guts out of them, and then you eat the tail. So anyway, first propellers were wood and fixed pitch, like this. I think everybody's noticed that the pitch out at the tip is less than it is closer to the hub. And the way they determine that, basically, this is a 40 pitch propeller, which means that if you screwed this propeller through a big tub of butter, it'd go ahead 40 inches in 1 revolution. And so I graphed out 40 inches here. So this is 1 revolution, 40 inches. You go 1 foot out from the hub, this would be the blade angle. If you go 2 feet out, it's this angle. If you go 3 feet out, it's that angle. You know, very simple stuff. If you don't know, this is the face of the blade, the flat side. That's the face, and this is the back side. As for this is a Citabria propeller, and it is a M74 DM6-8-1. Sensenich used to prefix their propellers with an M, which meant metal, which they quit doing, so it's not an M anymore. It's a 74, which that's the design length of the propeller. DM is the model of the propeller. The S8 means it has a spacer that's 8/4 of an inch thick, so it's a 2-inch thick spacer. -1 means it's had 1 inch removed from the design length of the propeller. So it's 73 inches, right. And the reason for that was in certification of the airplane, they figured out they needed more prop clearance or more RPM or something. I don't know, you know.
Can they repitch those?
Yeah, they can. They have a limit of how much they can do, but they can repitch them. This is the propeller hub that fits that propeller, and it fits the old taper shaft Continental engines like the 65. And I think this is probably the only new taper shaft prop hub in existence. This is new.
Oh, that's the only one.
You better hide it from Phil.
Well, look, it's...
I know he is. I see 5-figure discount coming.
So I got to tell you how I got this hub.
How expensive are the wood props now?
Oh,
$1,000.
more than that.
And the metal one?
The metal ones, these are...
5.
I got a deal with Sensenich. I buy 5 of these a year from Sensenich, and they give me 25% off. And I sell them for $5,000 a piece. If you were flying around here the last year or two, and you turned base leg for 1/6, and if you look down, there's a bunch of old cars down there, and there was a Bonanza on a trailer. It's from the corner, from the intersection up here, you go north up the road is the first place on the right. And right there, you look down, there's a trailer with that old Bonanza on it. So anyway, the name was Clary. Anybody know? No, Don Clary was his name. And I went there and talked to him once or twice, and then I got bit by a dog, and I didn't go back there anymore. But he had another Bonanza in a hangar over at Bremerton too, and he was wanting to sell them. But those old 47, 48, 49 Bonanzas are just really not worth anything. It just too many problems with them, and just
Magnesium, yeah.
well, it's got the old welded steel center section, and got the old 165 Continental engines that those old engines, no parts for them. Well, anyway, he died and his wife died, and he had 2 daughters and a son, and they were starting to get rid of stuff. And the son come over to my shop one day. He had a bunch of stuff in the back of his pickup, and he said, "I got all this stuff here, and if you're not interested, I'm going to take it to the dump." So I looked through it, gave him $200 for it. There's a brand new prop hub.
Now Phil's really upset.
I know.
I mean,
He'll
I
give
didn't
you
think in my
$300
life I'd
for it.
ever see anything like that. And these are pretty valuable. That thing's, I think it's probably worth $1,000, I'm guessing.
Do they the metal blades? Do they cast them? Do they mill them out of billet? How do they?
I really don't know how they make them.
I think they're milled out of a chunk of block of aluminum.
Well, I wonder if they somehow forge or shape it into a rough shape and then mill it. I don't think it's.
A square block. Isn't it, to start with?
I don't think they do it from a square block. I think that they forge it into a rough shape and then mill it out. But I don't really know. The hub I mentioned is attached to the back of the propeller, and it is doweled to the propeller too. There's 2 dowel holes here, so it's doweled to the propeller. It has large holes here for the propeller bushings to stick into.
Is there a up or down or a left or right with those 2 dowel pins?
No, there's one on each side here. A lot of times they number these blades. I don't know whether they always number them or not, but a lot of times they'll stamp a 1 on a 1 and a 2. I can't see it right now, but normally they do. Propeller bolts. Propeller bolts have more threads on them than a normal AN bolt. So these are propeller bolts here, and this is a standard AN bolt. So you can see that there's a lot more threads on a propeller bolt than a standard bolt. And they screw into bushings that are installed in the crankshaft. So this is a propeller bushing here. Plugs in the back side of the crankshaft, sticks forward for the bolt. Of course, when airplanes got faster and more sophisticated, we needed propellers that changed pitch. So they started developing propellers that changed pitch, and the first ones were just like 2-speed propellers. They had a low pitch and high pitch, but now we have constant speed propellers primarily that maintain engine RPM via a governor like this that has little flyweights in it. You can see the flyweights in this. They're L-shaped so that they can actuate a piston rod that runs up and down in the governor to control the oil that goes into the hub of the propeller for the RPM that we want to run at. So that's a propeller governor. This is a MT propeller for my Scout. It's brand new, made in Germany, and it has wood in the blades. These blades are laminated wood and then covered with a sheath of, I don't know, carbon fiber or plastic or whatever they use, and then it's got a nickel leading edge.
What's the advantage over an aluminum?
Well, it's a lighter propeller.
A lot lighter, and
Yeah,
the pit
a lot
doesn't
lighter.
have the pitch in a certain range.
There's another way.
Doesn't like a metal blade? You have a pitch. You have to go below it or above it.
Oh, like a resonance?
Right. That will take it out because there's wood in
Yeah.
it.
Some do, not all of them do, but yeah, a lot of times your metal propellers, you'll have a range of
Range,
RPM you'd want to avoid.
Probably way more efficient too with that profile compared to aluminum.
This is a Hartzell compact propeller hub here and various parts from it. This is the dome that goes on the hub, and one thing about this propeller is it says on here, this propeller was lubricated with Aeroshell number 6 grease. Now, Hartzell has changed and they use a different grease now. And so you always got to look on the hub and see what it's serviced with. And they say if you use the wrong grease, you got to overhaul your propeller. So you don't want to use the wrong grease.
By the way, my brother maintains a Citabria for some guy. And it had this prop on it, and the plastic or whatever it is on the blades delaminated down in Arizona. They think it was heat.
Yeah, I talked to the rep at MT, and he said that they're controlling the moisture content of the wood. Some of their earlier propellers had too much moisture in the wood, and then when they get heated and dried out, the wood loses its moisture and shrinks up, and then it'd cause wrinkles in the
That's exactly what happened.
in the plastic coating. So
And the prop or Citabria, neither one would do one thing about it. The guy was just out. I think he was $11,000 out by the time he got prop on it.
yeah. Well, this prop is 16,000.
What's the overall period? Do they have a,
I really don't know.
like McCauley's what, every 5 years?
Yeah, the counter time and then the
Recommend.
You got
it's
hours.
TBO on the engine normally. Might add you pull a zerk on those the hub. If you grease it, you got to pull the opposite zerk out. Otherwise, it'll blow the seals out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a grease zerk goes in that hole right there, and there's a grease zerk in here, and the same thing over here. You got a grease zerk here and there. So you take this zerk out and pump grease in here, and the same thing over here.
Give it air.
And you take the zerk out and plug it? Or what?
Put it back in.
Put it back in.
Make you get the grease going through the other zerk.
Just gives it air.
Until it comes out.
Just gives it air.
Why would they put two grease zerks on and not a cap on or a plug on one side and a grease zerk on the other?
So you go either side. But it's just for air. So you pushing fluid through, and then you're capping it back up with a zerk fitting.
The Zerks are cheaper.
Yep.
And
Some cracks there too.
another thing that the rep told me about this MT propeller is that the sheets of wood that they use, they now have equipment that's I don't know what it would be, photographic or ultrasonic or whatever, so that they can examine this piece of wood and make sure it doesn't have any pitch pockets in it that's hidden down in there, because they've had some trouble with that too. They get a pitch pocket in the wood, and then the centrifugal force makes the pitch go out and make a rough spot in the blade, so they've had to do that too. So
What's the features of the prop there versus just a metal prop? Punch the speed.
well, it's lighter weight to begin with, and it's I don't know, like it doesn't have any resonant frequencies because it's wood or composite.
Move more air.
Well, I don't know. It's got the blade design, looks a lot different than a metal propeller, but I don't know what all the efficiencies are. Looks cool. Costs a lot of money.
What would a Macaulay version of that prop be? Just a metal constant speed.
For money,
Yeah, you said that was
probably about the same. Yeah.
Some of them have red dye in them too, on like your 182. They'll have red dye in the hub, so if it cracks, you'll see red, a red stain, and it'll get red on the windshield.
That's how you know to stop.
Time to come down.
Yeah,
It's cracked. It's a
We get
little
oil in
warning
there too.
I just wiped that off.
Like, well, let's go to Phil.
It stopped. It
Yeah.
stopped being a problem 100 hours ago.
Yeah.
So
Put a piece of
this Scout had a propeller like this on it when it got wrecked, and these are the parts of that propeller that basically aren't any good. So all these parts are the same as what's inside of here. No,
Scout.
this is for a Scout, yeah,
What horsepower engine would be on that?
180. So that's all I got, unless anybody wants to ask any more questions.
Hey, you didn't tell one thing about those props on a PA-30.
On a PA-30,
Those nitrogen-filled cylinders
nitrogen,
on my twin Comanche.
for feathering.
Yeah.
Yeah, some propellers have a nitrogen hub so that they can feather the propellers,
pitch.
right?
Yeah. And you got to check them every year on annual.
Yeah.
And, if you ever use them, then you got to
Repacking.
repack them.
Sounds cheap.
What, is it held under the pressure right there?
Yeah.
And then you just discharge that pressure?
And it's got a bracket on how much pressure you should have at various temperatures.
Can you unfeather it once you get it feathered?
Oh yeah.
Okay. But we have feather again after that?
I doubt it.
Oh, okay.
I think it might feather 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are there any piston constant speed props that'll actually go into beta, like a turbine would?
I don't know of any, no. Yeah. Yeah, that's something that the turbine engines do now, is go in beta, go reverse.
I saw one on a Super Cub. It was experimental.
Oh,
I'm sure it's,
that went reverse?
yeah.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
That's that those brothers that made that. It was a big giant one. Big. Yeah, I know you're talking about that drag. Yeah.
No, not Draco, because that was a turbine engine.
Yeah, turboprop.
But there's another guy racing. I think it's a Super Cub. Anyways, and I think it's got the R-Max, the Yamaha snowmobile engine in it. And I saw he's got.
Steve Henry?
Nope, that's another guy.
Because some of those guys doing the stall drag,
I mean, they're running nitrous
have
and
thrust reverse or have reverse pitch.
yeah. I don't think it's Steve Henry though.
I put it was a sales catalog, a sale brochure from an auction sale right there, but it's got a Everill one-bladed propeller on there. So there was certified a one-bladed propeller. And there's,
It was super efficient, right?
well, there's supposedly, yeah, less blades is supposedly
less
more
weight.
efficient, but here's
Less weight.
right here they're developing an 11-blade propeller.
If you want to see that tracking that Ron talked about, here's a Beechcraft Travel Air that's run over by a prop.
Looks like pepperoni.
Every revolution.
Got lots of windows in that one.
Mark's going to talk about some aromatic propellers.
Yep.
Well, I have a question on the propeller blade. On airplane wings, they have the wing tips that create efficiency. How come they don't do that on propellers?
They are.
Yeah.
They're making them round. They have like the new props. Well, they're
They have some that have the tips curled
pitch
forward.
curls. Yeah, like your composite props. They're pitched back.
I thought the guy just had a prop strike on the
No, they're made that way. They're made that way. A lot of your experimentals like that. All right.
How come more aren't done that way? Just cost of manufacturing?
I think it's cost. Okay, my presentation today is on what he was talking about earlier. It's a variable pitch, not a constant speed. Can anyone tell me the difference? Anyone know the difference?
The constant speed keeps the engine or the constant speed, and the variable, you can vary the pitch, but it might affect the RPM of the engine.
Okay. So, is this a variable pitch? Is that a variable pitch? What? There's no control on it. Is it a variable pitch? It is.
It's balanced between weight and your...
Right. So what I'm going to go over is, so this is the baby brother of that, his constant speed, but it's backwards. So what the whole idea behind this is when you are on taking off, okay, the counterweights, if you can look at this, so this little pitch thing here, how it turns, it's not exactly straight. Let me get this out of the way. Can you see how it's curved? Okay, and your counterweight's like that. So what happens when you taking off, your your weights go centrifugally go in the middle. Okay, that's on high speed. That's with no control. It does it on its own. So these counterweights move forward. All right. So this particular one here is a aromatic without control. So there's no hole in it. It does everything itself. When you go to a cruise, say you get to 7,000 feet, you pull back the throttle, the weights will go back, and now your pitch, now you're high pitch instead of low pitch. Okay. The only problem with that, it's good for about 7,000 feet. So what happens if you want to go 10,000 feet or whatever with your engine and your air, your pressure, because your rotation and your air pressure is going to keep you there. So that's where this comes in handy. These are high cruise. So as you can see, you've got you got oil pressure comes through your prop, and it controls similar to your constant speed, and it's controlled by these little deals right here. So he's talking about these are the variable ones. These are made by Cincinnati. These are variable, so you can go a little bit at a time. Univair comes out and it's either open or closed. Okay, so that means the blade. So basically, when you take off, you're going to push it all the way in your throttle position, and it's going to push. So your piston, if you can see that, so your piston's in here. Here's your piston, right here. Your piston's going to push all the way up, and that's going to keep your low pitch, just like your constant speed. Okay. And then when you get to altitude, you're going to pull your control back, relieve your pressure. And what that does, it uses these. So basically, when you have when you go to low pitch, it goes through this passage and that one. So it puts pressure to your piston, which gives you low pitch. When you get to altitude, you pull it back, and it just goes to these two holes right here, which gives you ventilation, and it drains all the oil out of the hub back into your engine. Okay, so this is kind of similar to your twin. These two are backwards. All right, this one pushes the prop forward. His goes back, so you're pushing pressure. This one wants to. You have to. The fluid has to push. When you push a fluid in, it's going to a low pitch. His is backwards. So your twin is like that.
So if you lost oil pressure with that one, it's going to a fine pitch, like takeoff.
Correct.
And that one's going to go to like feathered cruise.
Right. Well, actually, this one, if you lose this, these are actually identical. So if I let's say something happens, and I just pull it back, well, this thing turns into a regular aromatic. It's going to do its own thing because of the weights. So that's another thing I want to talk about. So the weights control this. So if you can think about it this way, where you get a relative wind at, let's say you're just taking off, your weights, and you got high, your throttle in, your weights are going to centrifugally go forward. Okay. When you get wherever you're going to go, let's say 7,000 feet, you pull the throttle back to 2,400. Your weights or your counterweights against the relative wind are going to go back. And then that way you're at cruise. So it does the same. And what Ronnie's talking about, this is, they did have constant speed. This is after World War II, so in the late 40s. So when, when the small aircraft were building, post-war aircraft, they're like, well, we want some of that constant speed. They had them in World War II. But the problem is they just not enough oil pressure in these things to do the constant speed. Without of course, your governor has a oil pump on its own. So with this, it uses oil pressure without an extra oil pump. So you have to maximize the oil pressure in your pump to pump the oil through here. Because as you can see, the piston's really small. There's not much area here. And of course, your spring, it's going against the spring. There's two adjustments on this. So this is like your hub. There's two adjustments. The first one, this is A. What that does is it counteracts against this. So like if you're doing for your ground idle static pressure, so with that, when you adjust this puts a stop. It puts a stop on this bolt here. So in other words, for these particular for aromatics, your maximum RPM is 2550. Okay, so you can either adjust your pitch so you get more pitch, or just restrict your tack. You know, so these are all for Franklin's right here, but it's better to restrict your tack. That way you have your power up in higher altitudes. If you're going higher altitudes, you got more air. You do that. This other adjustment right here is for climb. You want to climb with these two are for Blancas. They go 85 on a climb. Okay. Now I got another prop here. This is Skyblade. Pardon me?
O-rings or metal?
No, these O-rings. There's so basically the O-rings are top, and then one right there, right in the middle. They're just standard O-rings, pretty much. And it's pretty tight tolerance in here. And this plug right here is how you bleed it, and this one, of course, comes to the bottom. It's really nothing to it. It's spring and a piston. That's all it is. And then your adjustment.
You said the oil pump from the engine has to put out more oil pressure.
Yes.
Than
Well, if you do stock, so these for Franklin, they made it for Lycoming, Continental, and all that. So the advantage with Ronnie's is that has his governor. You normally have a like your 180 has a pump in it, an oil pump, along with your flyaways. So you're gonna put it's up front where the prop is, so you got that extra pressure up there. Okay. Well, this is using the engine oil pressure from the sub. So you put a couple washers in the springs and up the pressure.
Gotcha.
So you don't need a whole lot because you're working with it. The flyweights are working with you, so you don't need a whole lot. So if you take off, you put your prop throttle all the way, or your oil control all the way in, you got that pressure locking the blades flat pitch till you get up to, I don't know, 10,000 feet, wherever you want to go. You pull that out. Now that oil is draining back to your sub, and then the weights are going to do what they want. They're just going to, go to high pitch at that point.
You need to set the stops as to what you want.
Yeah. That's what this is for. But actually, so this is usually about 14 degrees, about 20. It just depends what the application is. So this is like I said, for this stop right here is for your static RPMs. Right, a low pitch. So you want your static for aromatic is 2650. They don't want you to go because you start getting supersonic speeds, get vibration, and this again is composite too. This is laminated birch. Okay, so you don't want it'll start vibrating, start falling apart. So that's what you could. So let me go over that. These plates, see, like on this, where this is the same kind of prop. It's just right here. They're plated, so basically, these shims will stop it right where it's supposed to be. So in other words, at this point right here, it shouldn't go any more than 26. If it does, you have to limit your speed on that. But there's shims in here that stop basically this is a cam. A cam with bearings, and it's got 2 arms, and it stops right at that pit, that plate there, the shims. So you're doing the exact same thing with this one. You're doing the exact same thing with this. You're just doing it with piston, and these and you're doing with your stops in here, with your screw in there, and you're screwing this right here. Let me see what else. Okay, so let me go with the Skyblade. Who was that got lost his prop? Who was it?
We had a member of our club that lived out in your country that lost a propeller blade and lost an engine.
Right.
Snap-o-matic.
Was Snap-o-matic or?
Snap-o-matic.
Okay, so it wasn't the same one.
Sedan.
Yeah, I know. So it wasn't a Skyblade.
No, it's a
Okay. So this is different. This is for percentage. It's the same thing as the aromatic. It's just different because if you look at this, it's a little tiny bit different. I mean, it has oil in it. This has got pretty much like a seal. It's not a metal. It's a kind of a bladder piece. I'll show you a picture of that.
Navy on 7 big bladder.
Yeah. It's just basically, it's the same concept as aromatic. So this one is just the hub is a seal like that. And all it does, it's the same thing. It's just it's the same thing, it's same concept of this piston. You put oil pressure in there and you lower your, small pitch. The only difference is these are the counterweights on this. So you don't have these extra weights like this. So what you do is, because the shank is a lot thicker and everything else, the adjustments, like when you do your balancing. So these are done with your horizontal balancing, where you adjust these arms, when you do horizontal. When you do vertical with these balancing, these bands right here on both of these, same. These bands go the same direction on vertical balancing, okay? But as you can see, the weights, if you guys can see the weights on this, they're smaller because what happens is once you get at altitude, it's going to go higher pitch. Well, the ones you can adjust the oil pressure, you want a little bit more weight because when you're at 10,000 feet, you want a little bit extra weight to get the extra pitch out of that. Like I said, the aromatic without the oil is going to be, you're about 7-ish thousand feet, and after that you're pretty much a fixed pitch prop. After that, it's done enough power, not enough air to get the pitch in there. Just like his, it's composite. It's laminated birch, and they have the and they got the epoxy on that to for seal it. These are all like 40 years old, and they're, there's only really 2 AD notes on these, all these. It's the edge. The only AD notes is on the edge. So you take these weight bands off, the edge on this for cracks, and you look at this screw. So I actually took this out, one of Ronnie's. Where'd that screw go, Ronnie?
They were laying on the table there, I thought.
Was it? Okay. Oh, here you go. So anyway, there's about 16 of these screws per blade, okay? Plus you got the ferrule, and that's one of the AD notes. You got to check the tightness of the blade, and if the one of them come out real loose, you got cracks, your blades are no good. You throw them away. And they come in pairs, and I'm sure that's the same way. It has to come in pairs. That's about all I have.
Let me just say one thing. On a constant speed prop on a single engine, you lose oil pressure, it goes to low pitch, high RPM.
Right.
High pitch.
No, it goes to...
Mine goes high pitch on the low RPM. If you do that.
Daryl's goes to high pitch.
His is different, yeah.
It goes to low pitch, high RPM on a single.
Oh, okay.
On a twin, it goes to low pitch. I'm sorry, it goes to
High pitch.
RPM. It's going to go toward feather.
Right.
On a twin, you're going to feather it, so it goes toward feather.
Right.
But on a single, they think it's wiser to have it go to a fine pitch and high RPM.
Correct.
You're going to ruin your engine anyway.
That's right.
Take it as far as you can
Right.
with a more efficient performance.
Well, that's what I was going to say. These are, the design are very similar, but the spring this is similar to your twin. Yeah. That's just like you're saying for low pitch. Right, it's exactly reverse. It's just like your twin. These are like your twins, exactly. That's pretty much it.